page number 11. Yes, honorable member for Okanekwe Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've seen a couple of bilateral air services agreements that has been referred to the Roads and Transport Committee. Mr. Speaker, it's my humble view that all these bilateral agreements are between states. Roman 1 is between Luxembourg and the Republic of Ghana.
Which page are you talking from?
Page 11. And it runs to page 12. Luxembourg, you have Mauritius, you have the state of Qatar, you have Guyana, you have Benin, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mr. Speaker, in as much as I believe that this agreement relate to the transport sector, they are all treaties, I believe, which were negotiated between the Republic of Ghana with the support of the Foreign Ministry. I think the Committee on Foreign Affairs must be involved in the discussion of this very important treaty, especially when the same committee supervised those bilateral arrangements between these two countries. I think it's very, very important when it comes to treaties. Thank you.
Well, honorable member, I think this is the record of what happened yesterday. So we are just making sure if there's nothing that we said or didn't say, but this is what we agreed. So it's a record of yesterday's proceedings.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with you. The record says the second deputy speaker referred the agreements to the Committee on Roads, Transport for consideration and report.
So that's what I'm saying, that this is what took place.
That's the referral.
Yes.
But I'm saying that the Foreign Affairs Committee ought to have been included.
Well, I think we should allow the records to stand. We are not just changing the records. We are just making sure that what took place is what we are revealing. So, honorable member, as much as I appreciate where you are coming from, I think we should move on to page 12. Kofi Adams, are you up on your feet? Yes, let's hear you.
Speaker, this is just for maybe my education. On Friday the 17th, you shared a chair with Mr. Speaker. But on the page for adjournment, it was your name that featured. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker was not here. He didn't even preside at all. But you observe that on page 12, we have Mr. Speaker's name there. I don't know when and what name should apply.
Yes.
It's for
Honorable member for Bill. I mean, that is the arrangement. I sit here for and on behalf of Mr. Speaker. It is only when he is not in the country, then the presider may have his.
Then, Mr. Speaker, the 17th, the report for 17th, which was taken yesterday, should equally be corrected then, because it was your name that was there, even though you shared a chair with him on Friday.
Well, we will look at it, but that has been the standard. So, return to page 13. Page 14. And finally, page 15. Honourable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of yesterday, Monday, 20th November 2023, is hereby adopted as the true records of proceedings. Honourable members, I have in my hands the 9th November official report. 9th November official report. Honourable members, I take it again. 9th November official report. In the absence of any correction, honourable members, the official report of 9th November 2023 is hereby adopted as the true records of proceedings. Honourable members, before we move to the next item on today's order paper, let me use this opportunity to acknowledge some visitors in our public gallery. The first one is Reformers Junior High School. Reformers Junior High School, and they are represented by Superintendent Bright Dubachi. And the school is located in Ayawaso West constituency. Ayawaso West constituency. Do we have the member here? Yes, that's it. Yes. The second is Vic France School Compress, and they are being led by Okran Mensah. And the school is located at Shai Osu Doku constituency. Shai Osu Doku constituency. Do you have the member here? Very well. So you are welcome. You may resume your seats. Yes. Respectful Majority Leader. Respectfully, Majority Leader. May you direct us, are you going to answer questions or?
Mr. Speaker, we may proceed with the debate.
Mr. Speaker, the format that we've agreed on is that every morning we shall begin with a debate on the matters and then terminate the debate at 2. And thereafter, recline to do questions and also bills before us. So the morning will be dedicated to the debate until 2 o'clock.
Yes.
Rightly so, Madam Speaker. Just that the plan was that we start at 10 a.m. It's almost 12 o'clock, so it looks like we will have only 2 hours. But the timeline that has been set, I'm very sure it will be extended to about 3 o'clock. What is important is that we do 5 each from both sides, and then we can go to question time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well. Honourable members, let me now invite you to page 6. Page 6. As we begin the commencement of public business. Page 6. Item listed 8. Motion. Yes. Who is moving the motion? Yes, leader.
Yes, Speaker, as you do know, the motion for the approval of the budget statement and economic policy of government has been moved by the minister in presenting the document to us last Wednesday. It's for us to second the motion, and then we move on from there. And the person proposed to second the motion.
Very well.
The Honorable Ojo Oponkroma, the minister responsible for information.
Thank you very much, Honourable Leader. Honourable members, as the leader said, the motion has been moved by the minister. So, Honourable Minister for Information will second the motion, then the debate will commence.
Mr. Speaker, I would also entreat you to set the ground rules that we have agreed on, that the second of the motion shall have 20 minutes, and also whoever on the other side comes in first to comment on the budget or debate would also have 20 minutes. Committee chairs, ministers, ranking members, and deputy ministers will come in to contribute to be giving 15 minutes. All other members will have 10 minutes. This is the shadow minister. The shadow minister is a ranking member.
Honourable members, I think we are all aware of the rules that has been set for the debate by the leadership. Yes. So, honourable members, the rules are there, and I'm going to go by the rules strictly. 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and 10 minutes. So, well, within 20 minutes, but not exceeding 20 minutes. So, and I also pray that unnecessary interjections will not be entertained. Honourable members, I'm repeating, unnecessary interjections will not be entertained. We want the public to listen to the debate. So let me respectfully invite Honourable Information Minister and Member for Ofuasia Yiribi to second the motion. Honourable, you have the floor now.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to second this motion. And I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Minister responsible for Finance last week on Wednesday, the 15th of November 2023, that this Honourable House approves the economic policy for 2024 and approves the budget for 2024 as well. Speaker, in so doing, let me commend the team from the Ministry of Finance that spent some time with us over the weekend explaining to members the details of the budget and economic policy, the rationale, and helping colleagues have a deep understanding of what has informed this policy. I also want to commend the parliamentary service, the clerk and the team, Mr. Speaker himself, for the innovative way in which this year's workshop was structured. It was very helpful in helping get a deep understanding, and we pray that it may continue in this dimension. Mr. Speaker, my submission this morning in seconding the motion is separated in three major parts. First, I want to speak to the economic policy that is outlined from pages 1 to 164 of the document that we received. And then I'll speak to the budget proper, from page 165 ongoing, including the fiscal tables there. And then, Mr. Speaker, there are some persons who are responsible, in my view, for ensuring that the budget performs and that it translates into the economic policy goals. And I'll be taking some time to call these persons out and ask that we all focus some attention on them to ensure that we succeed. So, Mr. Speaker, let me start with the economic policy. And in dealing with the economic policy, Mr. Speaker, it's important to understand the context within which this economic policy has been formulated. We are putting this economic policy before Parliament at a time when the global economy is challenged and the Ghanaian economy is challenged as well. We are putting it before Parliament at a time when there's a high cost of living all over the world and in Ghana as well. If you switch on your television, one of the slides you will find from CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC is the cost of living crisis and how various countries are responding to it. In America, they've passed the Inflation Reduction Act to respond to this cost of living challenge. In the UK, they tried the energy price cap guarantee to try and respond to it. So the second thing to note is that we are doing this at a time when there's a high cost of living. We are doing this at a time also when there's a fiscal crisis in many parts of the world manifesting in a high debt situation, and many countries are trooping to international partners to try and deal with their debt. And then also we are doing this fourthly at a time when growth is challenged. The Ghanaian economy that was growing at an average 7% between 2017 and 2019 is now just been growing around 1.5 thereabouts. So the context within which this economic policy has been brought to this House is that the economy is challenged, cost of living is high, debt levels are high, and growth is down. Mr. Speaker, therefore, if you are promoting an economic program, the question is, what must this economic program seek to achieve? Number one, a program at this time must seek to bring back stability. If inflation is sitting around 50%, no businessman can be satisfied to do business. If exchange rate volatilities are causing currency to be depreciating at the levels that we were seeing a couple of years ago, no businessman can happily do business. Mr. Speaker, therefore, the first objective of any sound economic policy or economic program at this time should be to bring back stability. Mr. Speaker, if you look at this program, pages 1 to 164, as I mentioned, where you find the full outline of the economic program, you'll find that the objective number one is stability. To bring the cost of living down to a level that our fellow compatriots in this country can accommodate. Inflation sitting somewhere around the 50s, brought down or being brought down this year currently to about 32%. And the forecast is that in the 2024 financial year, to bring inflation further down to 15%. Mr. Speaker, if anybody says that an economic program like this is useless or is empty, that cannot be true. This economic program, Mr. Speaker, is a program that is sound, that is sensible, that is pragmatic, and I believe that every single member of this House must support a program that seeks to bring down inflation from the mid-30s down to 15% by the end of the 2024 fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, look at the exchange rate. This economic program before us seeks to ensure that the stability that has returned to the exchange markets will be maintained. And that those days when you wake up in the morning and you see one rate and by the time you are coming back home, the rate has changed, will be things of the past. An economic program in a measure like that is one that I believe every single member of this House must support because it is sensible, it is pragmatic, that is what the people of Ghana are looking for. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana has mentioned that it's operating a tight monetary policy to help bring inflation down. So understandably, interest rates are still high. But they have made the point, and the point is quite well outlined in this economic policy, that when they are successful with that, we'll begin to see the interest rates come down again. So, Mr. Speaker, item number one, which is stability, is something that is pragmatic, it is sensible, and we must all support as part of this economic program before us. Mr. Speaker, another matter that the economic policy before us speaks to is a question of growth. We are programming an average of 2.8% growth for the year 2024 without any measures. That's what they like to say in their economics class, ceteris paribus, without any measures, all things being equal. But Mr. Speaker, the challenge that the President put before his economic management team was to answer the question, how do we grow faster than 2.8? We understand that the whole global economy has been in distress and growth levels have been downgraded. But how do we grow faster than the 2.8 that is being programmed for Ghana? And that is why, as the Finance Minister mentioned, a subcommittee at the EMT was put in place to develop a growth program aimed at ensuring that we grow faster than the 2.8. And Mr. Speaker, the economic policy outlines the 5 areas that this growth program is focusing on: agriculture, aquaculture, tourism, creative arts and sports, digitization on one level, and then trade and industry on the other level. The question is, do these areas represent areas where if we invest discretionary expenditure, we will be able to get growth higher than 2.8? Respectfully, Mr. Speaker, I don't think any economist worth his salt would disagree with that. And so you will find that the economic program before us responds to the question of growth. Why is growth important? Growth is important because as growth goes higher, jobs are created. As jobs are created, people get incomes. As they get incomes, they improve their quality of life. And so for us as an administration, it is key to ensure that we don't just take the 2.8% estimated growth, but we put in place a clear growth program aimed at taking us beyond this 2.8. And Mr. Speaker, later, when we look at the budget or the fiscals, we will find that allocations have been made to back this economic policy. Mr. Speaker, the third part of the economic policy that I want to highlight is the development agenda. Growth must translate into some development. And you will find that the very simple way that the administration has put it is that we are looking to continue projects that have been started, not necessarily start new projects that have not been funded. We're looking to complete the projects that have been started and to crowd in some more resources to achieve that. So, Mr. Speaker, on the first part of our conversation, which is dealing with the economic policy that has been put before us, I believe this House must come to the view that this economic policy is sensible, it is pragmatic, and it should be supported. The claim that it is empty, it is useless, cannot be sustained, because it is these same objectives that the people of Ghana are looking forward to. Mr. Speaker, I want to now go to the budget proper, where you find the numbers, to examine whether or not the numbers support the economic policy. And in so doing, Mr. Speaker, I want to draw the attention of the House to Appendix 4A and request colleagues to join in examining the allocations that have been made to these specific areas that have been selected to engineer the growth we are looking for. Because the best growth plan without allocation and execution is just black ink on white paper, Mr. Speaker. So on Appendix 4A, item number 15, food and agriculture, you will find that, Mr. Speaker, a whopping 3 billion Ghana cedis has been allocated to support the agricultural sector, specifically about 700 million Ghana cedis to support the Planting for Food and Jobs program, and about 525 million Ghana cedis to deal with agri-infrastructure extension across this country. Mr. Speaker, you find therefore that in the budget, the allocations are supporting the economic objectives that we have set. Mr. Speaker, item 16, the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, an unprecedented 298 million Ghana cedis to ensure that aquaculture can be promoted, to ensure that we can reduce our importation of fish, to ensure that we can create a lot more jobs and save foreign exchange in our exercise in that nature. Mr. Speaker, take trade and industry. 1 billion Ghana cedis allocation to trade and industry, out of which you will find specific allocations of about 123 million to support the One District, One Factory program, and about 13 million to support other interventions in that ministry. Mr. Speaker, tourism, arts, and culture receives a whopping 175 million Ghana cedis in the 2024 budget to stimulate activities in that sector so that we can grow and create some jobs, some more in that area. And finally, in the area of digitization, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization, item 25, 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. And you will see the breakdown of allocations, including about 200 million Ghana cedis to support young Ghanaians in the youth digital village. So, Mr. Speaker, when you speak of the budget, the allocations herein in the budget go a long way to support the economic program that the government has put out there. Mr. Speaker, delving into the question of expenditure some more, it is important to draw attention to the fiscal framework and to look at expenditure in particular. Mr. Speaker, we've been saying for a while in this country, cut expenditure, cut expenditure, cut expenditure. That if the government is committed, it should cut expenditure. And the administration introduced a number of measures aimed at cutting expenditure. For example, the salaries of government officials were slashed by about 30%, foreign travels were contained, acquisition of vehicles, etc. were contained. Mr. Speaker, the evidence is now showing in the books. Prior to 2023, expenditure on a commitment basis, which is a better way of measuring than expenditure on a cash basis, expenditure on a commitment basis was 27% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, the projected outturn is that we will be dropping about 7 points expenditure as a percentage of GDP on a commitment basis. Mr. Speaker, that is the clearest evidence you will find that our common desire, which is to cut expenditure, is manifesting. And Mr. Speaker, even the medium-term program suggests that next year we shouldn't do more than 21% of GDP, and in subsequent years we should stay within that expenditure threshold. Mr. Speaker, this is the evidence that a government or an administration is committed to cutting expenditure or to containing expenditure. Mr. Speaker, while we are happy on the expenditure side, I think there's something that needs to be said on the revenue side. Today, tax revenue as a percentage of GDP is sitting somewhere around 13%. Total revenue and grants, if you escalate it, about 16 or 15% plus. Mr. Speaker, in this chamber, we have made the argument over and over again that for an OECD country, we should be raising about 25% of GDP. People are creating the GDP, the productivity is there. But how much of it is coming back to the national kitty to fund the development agenda that we are looking for? Mr. Speaker, while we understand and commend the policymakers that in these times, you can only project to grow maybe just about 0.9% of GDP, about 11 billion cedis in nominal terms, we think that a lot more work needs to be done moving forward to ensure that the revenue generation exercise is more successful. Because if we don't raise the revenue, we are left with what? Borrowing. And we can't borrow our way out of the problems. So, Mr. Speaker, again, you will notice that in the medium-term program, we are projecting to grow revenues to about 20% of GDP by 2028. So it's understandable that under the current difficulties, 16% thereabout, just 0.9% increase, but by 2028, try and get to about 20% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, still talking of expenditure, I want to speak briefly about debt servicing. If you look at the fiscal tables from the previous year, you will find a difference of about 6 billion, what people like to call savings. I don't call it savings. 6 billion cutback on cedis, 6 billion cedis on estimated interest expenses or debt servicing. That is what translates into the savings from what you call the domestic debt exchange program. And Mr. Speaker, it is a program that over the about 10-year period, we are going to save about 60 billion cedis from this domestic debt exchange program that we have gone through. Mr. Speaker, that 6 billion per annum, that 6 billion average per annum is fiscal space that helps us to cut back on our deficits, even if it will not translate into any new expenditure items as well. And so, Mr. Speaker, again, you realize that we are doing better on the debt management program. Still talking of debt, another indicator, the deficit. Mr. Speaker, we were running negative 4.5 deficits just a couple of years ago. This year, the program is to bring us to negative 0.5. and next year to take us to positive 0.5. Mr. Speaker, that's one of the steepest consolidation exercises we have ever done in our history. A very steep one. And Mr. Speaker, sorry, that's the primary balance, I beg your pardon. And Mr. Speaker, what it is doing is that it is ensuring that in terms of our expenditure containment measures, we are staying on track. And so, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the budget itself, it is obvious that this budget is healthy. This budget is being set in a framework that is sustainable moving forward. And what we have to do is to ensure that we stay on that path. Mr. Speaker, the final part of my submission is to speak to the question of responsibility. So is it true that it is the government alone that bears full responsibility for ensuring that first, the budget performs, and second, the economic policy objectives are achieved? I don't think so, Mr. Speaker. I think that there are many other stakeholders who bear responsibility. Very often we, the political class, just point fingers at ourselves, and we don't raise the issue of everybody's responsibility. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to spend a few minutes to speak and to call out the responsibilities of various stakeholders. This budget program will succeed, and if it will translate into the economic objectives we are on their part. They've brought what we will consider as a sensible and pragmatic economic program. The budget makes sense, has a responsibility to examine, to debate, and to act. If we share that responsibility, there will be consequences down the line. And we cannot blame the government. If we, Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Revenue Authority, they have a responsibility. We have passed the Appropriation Act and we have passed the revenue measures. The implementation to ensure that the revenue numbers are achieved rest with them. We were in this house when in 2017-2018 we passed the Taxation Fiscal Act. Mr. Speaker, till today, implementation is a question that is in front of all of us. And so there's a responsibility on that side to implement as well what has been approved in this house. Mr. Speaker, the ministries, departments and agencies, chief directors, civil servants, ministers of state, chief executives, we also have a responsibility to ensure that the programs that have been outlined to deliver on the economic objectives are implemented on time and within budget. It's one thing to publish the program, it's another thing to make the budget allocation. But if we, who have been given the responsibility, do not ensure that these programs are executed in accordance with timelines and efficiently, not much will be achieved. Mr. Speaker, parliamentary oversight. Parliamentary oversight. We have a responsibility in this chamber that when programs are approved and funds are allocated, we hold the agencies and the heads of these agencies accountable for the implementation of these programs. If we don't, we can have a nice debate here, we can vote, we can have a nice economic policy, it won't translate to much. And so, Mr. Speaker, those responsibilities must also be borne in mind. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, very finally, citizens. The government does not have money lying down somewhere. The government raises the revenues to fund the programs. This year, 0% financing from the central bank. So, Mr. Speaker, to conclude,
Honourable Minister, your time is getting up.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Citizens have a responsibility as well. And our ability to each fulfill our obligations will translate into fulfillment. So, Mr. Speaker, this economic policy is sensible and pragmatic. The budget is healthy and sensible. We all have a responsibility. Let us live up to it so that we achieve the objectives. Let us avoid excessive partisanship so that we can achieve the objectives. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. It is now the turn of Honorable Isaac Adongo. Honorable, you have 20 minutes. 20 minutes. The floor is yours now.
Mr. Speaker, I sympathize with my very good friend and honorable colleague, Honorable Kojo Okonkrumah. It's a very difficult job. Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that you are as good as a budget. And if the budget that has been presented is empty,
You can't force magic out of Ojopo Nkuma. And so I sympathize with you. But Mr. Speaker, I can count about 23 members on the other side. And this is their budget. If they are not interested, they should tell us to stop. Why are they not here? Mr. Speaker, the minister attempted to tell the people of Ghana that we should be celebrating a projected GDP of 1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, have you delivered 1 billion GDP? 1 trillion, yes. Have you delivered any 1 trillion GDP? It is just a promise. And if we were to follow your promises, go to Adoso Okai and ask them. Mr. Speaker, you are asking us to celebrate. Go and ask the Eurobond holders all the sweet and juicy things you told them about how Ghana, and they gave you the money. Today you are telling them you can't pay. As a matter of fact, in one of those circumstances, in 2019 when they came to eat the kenke and fish, they had told the investor that Ghana will be producing 500,000 barrels of crude oil by 2020. We are in 2023. Have you even achieved 150,000 barrels? So, as for you and promises, if we follow you, go and ask the NAPCO beneficiaries. 70,000 of them have now joined what they call the Unemployed Youth Alliance. So this 1 billion is a roof. 1 trillion, anyway. 1 trillion is a roof. But Mr. Speaker, the reality is that this 1 trillion is difficult to even understand. You said that you are going to grow your GDP from 850 billion to 1050 billion, a trillion Ghana cedis. That is about 22% growth in your GDP. Then you said that you reduce your inflation from 35 to 15%. That is a gain of about 20% improvement in real numbers. What that also means is that your GDP is influenced by output and volume and not price. And yet when you put that together, your economy should be growing in real terms close to 20% to get that number. And when we ask you, what is the real growth? You said 2.8. Why are you cooking this? Even when you are cooking the number, you are not smart enough.
Something must be wrong.
I mean, this is voodoo economics.
Something is wrong somewhere.
But Mr. Speaker, since when did we use nominal GDP to assess the performance of an economy? That was done in the medieval time, the Stone Age. That was where we didn't know quantitative economics, inflation, and deflate inflation. In the 21st century, you are still calculating GDP and assessing your economic performance on the basis of what do you call it, nominal GDP. That must tell you that something is wrong. The economy is in trouble. But Mr. Speaker, the minister was at pains to explain that this is an improvement of a GDP of 219 billion by His Excellency Dr. Mahama. Mr. Speaker, which one will you prefer? A GDP of 209 billion, where you go and buy 1 gallon of fuel or petrol for 16 cedis, and an economy of 1 trillion, when you go and buy 1 liter of 24 Ghana cedis. Which one will you prefer? Will you prefer Dr. Mahama's economy, where you were drinking your calico for 50 pesos, to your 1 trillion where you will now be buying that calico for 6 cedis? Which one will you prefer? Which one will you prefer? A 219 billion economy in which you will buy an olonka of kokunde for the poor at 112 cedis, or 1 trillion where you buy olonka of kokunde for 500 Ghana cedis. So you must understand that economy is about livelihoods. It's about real growth. And the earlier you understand that, the better. Mr. Speaker, my colleague talked about revenue. And here again, they are cooking the numbers. You said that you are going to achieve a revenue target at the end of the year of 133 billion. And that is 15.7% of your GDP. But you will grow that revenue by about 1.1% to give you 16.8% of GDP. That 1.1 is about 11 billion. Mr. Speaker, when you add 11 to 133 billion, you get 144 billion. So where did you clock that 176 billion from? That 176 that you have used to calculate your expenditure, where did you get it from? So clearly, you have inflated your revenue by over 40 billion so that you can now project an expenditure of 226 billion, so you can have 40 billion cushion for reckless expenditure in an election year. That is all that you have done. But Mr. Speaker, the minister said that they have impacted Ghanaians positively, all households. Mr. Speaker, it's true that they have impacted all households. But Mr. Speaker, we all know that they have impacted.
Honorable Ranking, hold on. Let me cede the chair to the Right Honorable Speaker. So you've already spent almost 6 minutes. Yes.
Yes, Honorable Member, you may continue.
The minister told us that they have impacted every household positively. Mr. Speaker, I agree that they have impacted every household, but I disagree that it is positive. They have, as a matter of fact, impacted our household negatively. I don't get the right word to explain. Tell the minister he impacted us negatively when he registered growth of 0.4% and therefore kept a lot of people at home. When last year he is projecting to grow at 23%, and even next year he is still projecting to grow at 2.8%. Mr. Speaker, where will our people make the income? Where will our people find the jobs? That is a negative impact. But Mr. Speaker, he impacted us negatively when inflation was 54%. He impacted us negatively when the depreciation of the cedi was 54%. He impacted us negatively when he introduced 32 new taxes from 2017. 32. You came and told us moving from taxation to production, not knowing you were arming yourself to come and kill us. 32 new taxes. An adjustment of all taxes, introduction of other levies, all amount to about 32 of them from 2017. That is how badly you have impacted us. But Mr. Speaker, as a result of this, His Excellency John Dramani Mohammed's 4-year term, the total revenue he took from people of Ghana was just 65 billion. You have taken 344 billion from the people's pocket, and you say you have impacted them positively. Mr. Speaker, you have taken an additional amount of 279 billion from the poor people in Ghana. You still remember e-levy. They said e-levy was going to be the Akoban of the world. Now where have you reached? Where have you reached? You said that with e-levy you create U-Stop job. Today U-Stop is U-Stop. Mr. Speaker, they impacted us negatively when for 3 years consecutively they registered double-digit deficit. 15% in 2020, 12.1% in 2021, and 11.8% in 2022. That is disastrous economic management. Mr. Speaker, they impacted us negatively when they drove our debt into unsustainable levels. They impacted us negatively when all rating agencies gathered around to embarrass Ghana by rating us at double triple C. As a matter of fact, in recent times, we have been rated RD. RD means that you are rated default. You can't pay. Mr. Speaker, when we are trying to find solutions to deal with the economy when they leave office, and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is proposing a 24-hour economy. I heard somebody who has disappointed the people of Ghana. Somebody who said one village, one dam, and went and dug gutters and dugouts. Somebody who said one district, one factory, and built now. Somebody who said 1 million per constituency, and for 7 years I'm still waiting for even $1 million. He says that John Mahama does not understand
the 24-hour economy. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, Dr. Baumia learned economics at O-level. Dr. Baumia learned economics at A-level. He went to university and learned economics first degree. Did economics again at master's level and did economics at PhD. Went all the way to Zimbabwe to be a consultant to Robert Mugabe. We all know what happened there. Inflation was over 1,000%. Mr. Speaker, he came back to Ghana. And was the deputy governor of the central bank, where there are formulas for calculating the depreciation of a currency. But Dr. Baumia refused that depreciation formula and used the rate of change to calculate Ghana's depreciation and got 240%. Mr. Speaker, no currency can depreciate up to 100%. If you depreciate up to 100%, it means that you have shared your entire value and you cease to be a legal tender. But when he finished, he carried that money to Malata market to go and buy onions and pepper. When he came back, before we realized he had drawn a calculator and was calculating inflation. Mr. Speaker, he even added cement, who was not part of the goods and services. In fact, services that are used to calculate inflation are not even available in the Malata market. So was he calculating Malata inflation or Ghana's inflation? Mr. Speaker, this man, after almost 30 years experience in economics, this is the economy has left us. How will he understand 24-hour economy? How will such a person understand 24-hour economy? When you are since abandoning the economy and it's on digitalization, please, we want people who understand this matter to assist us find a solution to the problems of our economy. Mr. Speaker, you remember that last year, I was very quick to compare my big brother, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, to Harry Maguire. Mr. Speaker, I now apologize to Harry Maguire. Mr. Honorable Chairman, sir, you got very angry when I used your defender as an example. Today, Maguire has turned the corner, is a transformational footballer. Harry Maguire is now scoring goals for Manchester United. Mr. Speaker, Harry Maguire is now a key player for Manchester United. As for our Maguire, he is now roaming at the IMF with a cup in hand. As for our Maguire, the economic Maguire now was able to get pensioners to leave their homes and come and parade in the streets.
Honorable member, just a minute. I can see some agitations in the front bench of the majority. Yes. Just a minute. I'm aware you agreed to, as much as possible, reduce point of orders. It doesn't necessarily mean that there will not be point of order. So let me listen to him to know whether it's a point of order or it's even something else. Just hold on. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, I rose on a point of relevance. Mr. Speaker, what is before us is the budget. What is before us is the budget. And we are not here to debate Dr. Baumia and Mr. Mohammed. Mr. Speaker, I only felt that since we have agreed to have a very decent debate, based on which, Mr. Speaker, we had a post-budget workshop, and you entreated us to pay attention to the details and anchor our submissions on the details. So, Mr. Speaker, I only felt I should bring this to your attention so that our respected colleague would concentrate on the real issues rather than personalizing the matters and making Mr. Speaker, if we look at Order 93.5, Mr. Speaker, Order 93.5, a very profound guidance is given to us, that it shall be out of order to attempt to. Mr. Speaker, no, so please. 93.5, please, take it easy. The conduct of Mr. Speaker, members, Chief Justice and judges of the Superior Court shall not be raised except upon the substantive motion and in any amendment, question, or to a member or remarks in a debate or on a motion dealing with any other subject matter. Any reference to the conduct of persons mentioned shall be out of order. Mr. Speaker, in his submission, he is talking about the conduct of the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, this where, Mr. Speaker, if you may want to patiently listen, because I've quoted the order and I'm making reference to the very things that you said about him. Mr. Speaker, I have made my point and I rest it there.
Honourable Member, you've not raised any relevant point of order. You yourself read the standing order, and the standing order is very clear. It has mentioned some specific office holders. Mr. Speaker, members, what refers to members of Parliament, the Chief Justice, and judges of the Superior Court of Judicature. There is no mention of any holder of Vice President. And so the Vice President is not covered in this matter. The Honourable Member was not talking just about conduct. He was linking it to the economy. And the economy is a major area in this budget. And I listened to the motion mover and the person who seconded, the Minister for Information. I listened to him very carefully. He was very civil. He put across his point succinctly. And the response is coming from the other side. May we listen to each other. I expect the majority, who have a limping majority leader, limping because when you look at his back, you are less than those in front of you. You have a lame duck president. A lame duck because you have elected a flag bearer. And loyalty and commitments are shifting. So your president is now lame duck president. You need this side of the house to support you to finish your 8 years. And so if you don't behave well, we have a difficulty in proceeding as a nation. Please, I expect you to cooperate. I will not allow them to bully you. That one, you will get sufficient time to put across your case. I will not allow them to interject and disrupt your debate, please. So let's respect each other, let's listen to each other. And at the end of the day, if there is any issue in terms of decency of language and the rest, I will personally intervene and object to it. Please, Honourable Member, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I was making the point that over 7 years, you have impacted our lives negatively. In fact, it would have been better if you had left our life the way it was in 2016. Mr. Speaker, you impacted our lives negatively. When you were locked out of the capital market, when for the first time, people who want to lend money on the capital market abroad, when they hear Ghana's name, they are hiding their money. Because when we take it, we don't pay. That is what you did to us. You impacted us negatively. Mr. Speaker, you hurt our economy when you collapsed the Bank of Ghana with a printing of money worth over 80 billion as reported in this audited account. Mr. Speaker, when Bank of Ghana itself that is chasing people for recapitalization, you run that Bank of Ghana into a negative net worth of 54 billion, now requiring recapitalization themselves. Mr. Speaker, you collapsed Bank of Ghana, said that Bank of Ghana today is policy insolvent. When they say a central bank is policy insolvent, it means that that central bank cannot undertake monetary action without printing money, which is exactly what has brought us to where we are. So it must take more poison and destroy us to be able to be a Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, you impacted us negatively when you collapsed 422 financial institutions and locked up people's monies. Today, people say cannot get their monies back. Mr. Speaker, you impacted us negatively when you moved 850,000 Ghanaians into poverty. The Living Standard Survey show that 850,000 Ghanaians have now crossed the low poverty line and they are now into abject poverty.
Member, you should be concluding. You should be concluding.
Mr. Speaker, I have 20 minutes. Mr. Speaker,
I am aware, and I was told the minutes he spent before I took over. And so I'm calculating that he spent 6 minutes. We used a minute in the transition, and then he used a few minutes in raising the point of order. I have calculated all that. Please, his is 20 minutes. You want me to mention the minutes he has used now? You are using more minutes.
Mr. Speaker, this is a government that came on the promise of moving from taxation to production. The man who went around delivering lectures on how to move the economy from taxation to production, now if you want to mention his name in relation to the same thing, then he's get up on point of order. Mr. Speaker, 32 new taxes, old taxes, and adjusted tax fees and charges since they came into power in 2017. Is that how you move from taxation to production? Mr. Speaker, they have extended the fiscal, the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy until it was converted into what they call the Growth and Sustainability Levy. Mr. Speaker, they have introduced sanitation levy. They have introduced e-levy of all taxes. Mr. Speaker, they have introduced banking sector cleanup levy. Mr. Speaker, they have introduced COVID levy. Mr. Speaker, even the people that they cannot get jobs for, the youth that are unemployed, when they decide to now bet and get some money, that one too, they don't spare it. They take their money. Mr. Speaker, what else haven't they taxed? What else haven't you taxed? I'm just hoping that one day we'll not get up and we'll introduce a bill to tax our air. When that happens, we'll be gone. But Mr. Speaker, we know in NDC that John Dramani Mahama will inherit a very, very difficult economy. But if there's anybody, after having undertaken this naive experiment, Ghanaians are not ready for any experiment anymore. Ghanaians are ready for an experienced, capable, humble, and a strong man who can deliver the people out of And in 2024, His Excellency will bring back John Dramani Mahama and save the people of Ghana from this disastrous economic management. Mr. Speaker, I would like to end on a note that today our finance minister and the president, when they travel out, they are not going for economic diplomacy. They are going to beg our bilateral creditors, please, we can't pay. He's not here. Please, we can't pay. That's why he's not here. He's roaming in Germany now. And yet, it's getting bad. Unfortunately, they say they want to break the 8. These are Konongo Kaya people. Mr. Speaker, to wit, these are the proverbial lazy headquarter in Konongo. He won't carry the load. He will also get away for somebody to carry the load. And Ghanaians are saddled with the bed. Whether you like it or not, we will move the mountain and John Mahama will come back. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Honorable members, from the list before me is the time of the Deputy Minister for Finance, Honorable Abina Osei Asare.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend my brother on the other side that this speech is more on the political platform than a budget debate. So take note of that. Mr. Speaker, you know, when we speak without making reference to current global trends, we are only trying to be deceptive. Former President Mahama goes outside of this country, makes speeches and acknowledges the impact of COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war. Here are his people here refusing to acknowledge that. Refusing to acknowledge that. So you don't go out stating numbers without making reference to the current global situation. When you do that, it means you are out of touch with reality, and that shouldn't be the case. Mr. Speaker, let me go to my submission.
Honourable members, please. Yes, go on.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity and also thank you for the support we have enjoyed from you in implementing the 2023 budget. It also goes to the people of Ghana for your immense support throughout the implementation of the 2023 budget. And this has helped the economy recover. Mr. Speaker, it is our hope that we will continue to entrench the recovery process, leading to stability and growth in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, let me take you back to 2016. In 2016, amidst favorable global trends, with a barrel of oil priced at a modest $43 per barrel, that the government of 2016 disappointedly achieved a mere 3.4% growth rate. Regrettably, the fiscal discipline was cast aside in favor of elections. The siren call of electoral enticement led to the disregard of prudent financial management. The IMF program was derailed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in their own budget, 2016 budget, paragraph 24, page 8, it said that they projected growth at 4.5%. What did we see in 2016? A mere 3.4%. They projected inflation at 7.3%. And what did we see? 15.4%. Without any issue with COVID, the Russian-Ukraine war, or the current trends in which we find ourselves. This was what they did in an election year. But, Mr. Speaker, however, in our 2024 budget, the government is resolute in breaking free from all election year encumbrances. A new trajectory is being charted, one marked by unwavering commitment of physical discipline. This commitment ensures that the seductions of elections no more hold on us. We won't divert from this path, Mr. Speaker, and we will progress diligently to forge ahead to make sure this journey that we find ourselves on, we will complete. Mr. Speaker, in our mid-year budget review, when we boldly declared that we had turned the corner and announced that we were witnessing some positive macroeconomic variables, our counterparts on the other side dismissed it as mere rhetoric. However, the tangible results are here for all to see. Let me take us through. Mr. Speaker, inflation in December 2022 was 54.1%. As we speak, inflation is 35.2% in October. Mr. Speaker, globally, for a country like Ghana, they have projected an inflation rate of 42.2% for us. But here we are in October, and we have done so well. We have brought it from 54.1% to 35.2%. It means the policies that we put in place in 2023 are working. Mr. Speaker, despite a 1.5 projected growth rate, my brother here was talking about a mere 1.5 projected growth rate. Every country that goes into a debt exchange program suffers for it. And so at 1.5, what did we even see? At 1.5, the actual growth rate is 3.2% over the 2 quarters, Mr. Speaker. And so we are making progress. But Mr. Speaker, globally, for a country like Ghana, it is projected that we will grow at 2.9%, but we have gone over and above, and currently 3.2% is the growth rate. Mr. Speaker, before we embarked on the debt exchange, Treasury bill rates were very high, above 35%. Currently, as we speak, Treasury bill rates are between 25% and 27.6%. This is why we say we have turned the corner and we will continue to do that. Mr. Speaker, last year we saw how erratic the exchange rate regime was. But today, as we speak, from February to date, the cedi against its major trading currencies have depreciated by just 6.4%. Clearly tells you that the PC peg and the measures that we have put in place is really working, Mr. Speaker. As my brother on the other side was saying, they are not empty promises. These are results that you see. These are results that you can feel. And so they are not empty promises, but rather deliberate actions, Mr. Speaker, deliberate actions and a steadfast dedication to make sure we get the economy back on track and also stabilize it and cause some growth, which we know in the end will result in wealth creation and employment for our teeming youth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me go to the IMF program. In 2016, which was an election year, what did we see our brothers on the other side do, our brothers and our sisters on the other side do? Their program was derailed because of election spending. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the 2016 and 2017 reports, budget reports, the 2017 report showed the actual damage that they did to this economy as a result of election spending. Mr. Speaker, they told Ghanaians they were going to raise a revenue of about 37.8 billion. They ended up raising revenue of about 33.6 billion. And in the end, they told Ghanaians that they were going to do an expenditure of 43 billion. But what did we see them do? Because of elections and then wanting to win the election, they spent a whopping 51.1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, they also budgeted that their deficit was going to be around 6 billion. What did we see in the end? The deficit rose to about 17.9 billion, Mr. Speaker. It's all in the 2017 report. This is not something that I am saying. It is data and records that you can find in Appendix 2C of the 2017 report, Mr. Speaker. But we, moving forward, Mr. Speaker, we are resolute. We want to stick to the plan that we have. And we know that the plan that we have will help us recover the economy, stabilize it, and also promote growth. Let me go back to the IMF program, Mr. Speaker. With the IMF program, we had our first review on October 6th. Mr. Speaker, through all the processes, the structural benchmarks, the quantitative measures, and the prior actions, except the one on IPPs, we were able to go through it successfully. And as a result of that, we are very hopeful that the next tranche of $600 million will come in to support our balance of payments. Mr. Speaker, yes, indeed, 2024 is an election year. It is an election year, and we have prepared adequately for that. Why I say we have prepared adequately for that is that we know that we need to continue to fund our infrastructure gap. And so, Mr. Speaker, for the first time in our history, we have a medium-term revenue strategy. This medium-term revenue strategy charts a roadmap for domestic revenue mobilization. And from this strategy, we came out with the measures for the 2024 report. We are and we are hoping that this will raise about 0.9% of revenue for us, of GDP of revenue for us in 2024. And so, Mr. Speaker, we are not just spending, but we are making sure that we come up with policies and measures that one will help us spend within our means. Mr. Speaker, as part of the revenue measures, what we are bringing to bear is that we want to introduce some reforms in the VAT area to make it one simple and enhance compliance, as well as foster a business-friendly environment. Mr. Speaker, this is what we want to do. In as much as we also want to raise revenue to support the expenditure that we have, government is also looking at supporting the local industry. And so government is giving out certain reliefs to the local industry. Mr. Speaker, one, government is extending the VAT, the zero rating of VAT to the suppliers of manufactured African prints and also locally assembled vehicles for the next 2 years. Mr. Speaker, that is not the only relief government is giving to support the local industry. Government is also going to bring the LI 2255 to Parliament to amend it such that our pharmaceutical products, certain active ingredients in our pharmaceutical products can also be exempted from paying taxes. Mr. Speaker, lastly, this thing has been on the table. I mean, a lot of Ghanaians are talking about it, and it has to do with the taxes on sanitary pads. Mr. Speaker, government and other stakeholders met with these local manufacturers of sanitary pads, Fatex and Sander, and through our engagement, government has also extended the zero-rated VAT as well as removal of import duties on raw materials used for manufacturing of sanitary towels. Mr. Speaker, we know that once we have done this, it will also reflect in the prices of sanitary pads in this country. And not just that, Mr. Speaker, not just that. We also know that it will address a vital aspect of public health and gender equality. So, Mr. Speaker, we have heeded to your voice. We have heeded to the voice of the people of Ghana. And for that, we are grateful for the support. Mr. Speaker, when you come to our expenditure, in the past, like I said earlier, governments have used election year as auctioning periods, engaging in all kinds of projects to win votes. But this government is committing itself to strong fiscal consolidation and efficient management of existing commitments in order not to derail the hard-won stability that we are witnessing. Mr. Speaker, as part of this commitment, government is not initiating new commercial loan-funded projects. And so when you check Appendix 10C, where we usually have commercial loan-funded projects, that place is blank. This tells you government is really committed to living within its means. Not just that, Mr. Speaker, government has also put in the budget an amount of money to clear the arrears so that we can complete existing projects. So that we do not add on, but already what we have, we can complete and then hand over to the various communities. And so with this, government is also saying that whilst it is restraining itself from adding on commercial loans, we expect SOEs to also do same. Mr. Speaker, we are hoping that, coupled with the revenues that we are going to raise and the efficient management of our expenditure, we will be able to bring our debt to GDP levels to about 55% in 5 years, as well as our revenue to debt servicing to 18%. 18%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, also, as part of our commitment to defy the temptations of elections in 2020.
Honorable Deputy Minister, you have 2 more minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as part of that, we are also, like Honorable Kojo Opon said, we are projecting a positive primary balance. And so clearly, whenever we have to pay our interest, we are not paying from a deficit position, but rather we are paying from a positive position. And we believe that will go a long way to also help us. So overall, Mr. Speaker, the budget policy presented to this House highlights 1, fiscal consolidation, debt sustainability, efficient management of existing commitments, without allowing elections to derail what we have. And we believe that, Mr. Speaker, it is our hope that this policy statement will be approved for government to implement all that it has to implement to allow our economy to grow by 2.8% of GDP, bring inflation down to 15%, build a gross international reserve of at least 3.5 months of import cover, and raise the needed revenue for development. Mr. Speaker, on this note, I urge the House to approve the policy statement of the 2024 Nkunim budget. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, we now listen to Honorable John Jinapor.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right, Honorable Speaker. Firstly, let me just deal with a factual inaccuracy. Because in this chamber, I do know that, Mr. Speaker, you encourage a lot of intellectual debate based on facts. You can have your different opinion, but you cannot have different sets of facts. Madam Deputy Speaker, Madam Deputy Minister, you said that you have a track record in election year expenditure. For the record, in 2016, go and read the updated data. The deficit was about 6%. Mr. Speaker, I refer to the IMF Ghana decision May 2023 document. I refer to page 36, table 2A. In 2020, under your regime, election year, your deficit was a whopping 17%. Wow. It has never happened, Mr. Speaker. And in that year, no country had that deficit of 17%. Wow. As if that is not enough, Mr. Speaker, 2021, overall balance deficit 12.1%. 2022, 11%. So you are doing double-digit deficit. 2020, 2021, 2022. And that deficit, when we say deficit, it simply means your revenue against your expenditure. When your expenditure is above your revenue, you get a deficit. You finance that deficit by borrowing. And by borrowing to finance that deficit, you accumulate your debt. That is why, Mr. Speaker, by 2022, our debt to GDP was 98.1%. This is their track record. This is their terminal report. Mr. Speaker, having dealt with the factual inaccuracy, let me come back to my real substantive debate. Mr. Speaker, I have in my hand here annual GDP. Unfortunately, now they've done almost 8 years. So you can compare NDC 8 years and MPP 8 years. And Mr. Speaker, I can table this document before the table office. I can even give a copy to the majority side. I make 3 copies. From 2009 to 2024, annual GDP. If you strike the mean, which is the average is 5.4. I've then broken it down. If the majority leader wants one, this is another copy. From 2009 to 2016, 8 years of NDC. The average growth rate, in terms of real growth, not nominal growth, was 6.475%. So it means that over the 8-year period, on average, we were growing the Ghanaian economy by 6.475%. Now I take MPP 2017 to 2004, and in the 2004, I use 2024. I use your own projection of 2.8. From our 6 point something, by the end of 2024, you'll be growing the economy on average by 4.3%. 4.3. And yet, Mr. Speaker, we handed over 3 oil fields to this government. We handed over extra levies to them. They've gotten over 20 billion from extra levies. But Mr. Speaker, like I said, this game and this debate is based on what? Facts. Now where we are, they want us to believe that they are in this mess and in this difficult moment because of what? COVID. Fortunately, Ghana is not an island. And I have decided that I'll use the minister's own budget to deal with the facts. Mr. Speaker, if you go to paragraph 49, table 1, global economic growth rate. This is the minister's own document. Yes. He's provided Africa's growth rate on average from 2018 to 2024. He's even provided sub-Saharan Africa. Because when you take Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia can mask it. So normally you take sub-Saharan Africa. Mr. Speaker, he himself has provided us countries to compare with. Ethiopia,
In 2022, this is post-COVID, they grew by 6.4%. Rwanda, 8.2%. Kenya, 4.8%. Mauritius, 8.7%. Nigeria, 3.3%. Ivory Coast, 6.7%. Ghana, 3.1%. Mr. Speaker, if you take inflation, this is the minister's own document. Ethiopia, for 2022, 26%. South Africa, 6%. Rwanda, 13%. Kenya, 7.6%. Mauritius, 10%. Ghana, 31.9%. Mr. Speaker, if you take consumer price index, the same. And yet, Mr. Speaker, gold is at an all-time high of 1,800 ounce from 1,200. During our time, it was 1,200. Today is $1,800. Cocoa beans was 2,000 during our time. Today is 3,200. Crude oil was 54 during our time. Today it is $84 per barrel. Mr. Speaker, and yet look at their outcome. Mr. Speaker, there's a popular saying that unto whom much is given, much is expected. Mr. Speaker, table 6. This is the budget. This is not my statement. Page 19. ECOWAS rationalized converging criteria. Budget deficits, we failed to achieve it. Inflation, we failed to achieve it. Gross external reserve, we failed to achieve it. Nominal exchange rate, we failed to achieve it. Public debt to GDP, we failed to achieve it. This is their record. And yet, you want to break the 8 with this lackluster performance? With this record, the minister tells us that he has turned the corner. You can only turn the corner into opposition with this kind of performance. You might have turned the corner, but you have turned the corner certainly into opposition. Mr. Speaker, this budget provides us with some very interesting information. He himself, the minister, says that cumulative depreciation has been 25.7%. If you want to measure how a government is doing well, the first thing is the rate of borrowing. When the minister came here and told us that he has turned the corner, he was borrowing at 18.5% as at March 2023. Today, having turned the corner, it has increased from 18 to 30%. Certainly, this corner has landed the car in a ditch. Mr. Speaker, if you want to look at an economy, it's not based on the nominal growth rate. Because inflation alone can just grow your economy. With the same goods and services, inflation can make it more expensive. Because when you value the final goods of goods and services, you might get a huge figure. So you look at where you call growth poles. That is how you measure an economy. So one, you look at the industrial sector. Mr. Speaker, paragraph 108. The industrial sector contracted. That is not growing. Negative 2.2%. The manufacturing sector contracted negative 1.1%. Electricity, negative 0.7%. Construction, negative 8.9%. Water supply, negative 4.9%. These are this year figures. This year as we speak. And you tell us that you have turned the corner. And I refer to paragraph 108 and paragraph 110. Mr. Speaker, every statement I make in the budget, I will quote the paragraph. I refer to paragraph 115. Wow. Mr. Speaker, credit to the private sector determines your growth. Do you know what we are doing?
No.
Private to the private sector has decreased to 2.8% from 41%. Last year, credit to the private sector, 41%. This year, 2.8%. And you know why? Government is in the market borrowing at an astronomical rate. And that is where you lead to what you call crowding out of the private sector. When you crowd out the private sector, it leads to unemployment. No wonder today the unemployment rate is in double digit, Mr. Speaker. Our international reserves has reduced from 2.3 months of import cover to 2.7 of import cover. Mr. Speaker, certainly, Mr. Speaker, this cannot be a good story at all. Mr. Speaker, you cannot, and that is a fact. And I do recall that when President Akufo-Addo was campaigning, he said, when my government comes and we don't perform in 2024, do what? Put us out. Mr. Speaker, how can you superintend over a collapsed economy and ask for another 4 years? How can you superintend over an economy that has been declared as bankrupt in this same budget? The minister himself says that having triggered the non-payment for our Eurobond and other external debt, Ghana technically declared itself bankrupt. It's in the budget. How can you have the worst currency in Africa and still expect that we should vote for you? How can you collapse your own NAPCO, your own flagship program, trumpeted by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia? How can it collapse and expect that you should be brought back into power? Mr. Speaker, the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, promised the people of the Zongos that he cares for them and he cares about them. Wow. And that he will come with the Zongo Development Fund and you put a seed money of 200 million. Beyond that, every year you make available $50 million. Today, this budget, as we can just check the figure for Zongo Development Fund, it's $1 million. Oh. As if that is not enough. As if that is not enough. The $1 million will be used solely for goods and services. Capital expenditure, zero. So the people in the Zongo, if you expect that you get even one block or one cement, what they are rather going to do is to buy ink, pen, photocopy, printing, tea, biscuit, chocolate, and all those things. This is the true state of the Ghanaian economy. The head of the economic management team, we are not personalizing him at all. We are dealing with his competence. He has proven that he cannot handle this economy. That is his core duty, to manage the economy. Now he wants to turn himself into an IT man and talk about IT. No, we want you to deal with what? With the economy. But I have a message, Mr. Speaker. And this message for me means a lot. Mr. Speaker, I have a message for the ordinary Ghanaian whose investments has been wiped off from this toxic domestic debt exchange in the form of haircuts. Mr. Speaker, I have a message for the teacher who today cannot make ends meet. I have a message for the disappointed Abosokai trader who was told that
member, you have 2 minutes.
They will give them half price at the ports, and yet they are struggling. I have a message for the NAPCO employee who is sitting in the house and doing nothing. I have a message for you ordinary Ghanaians, the suffering masses of the ordinary Ghanaians, that in the coming year, in 2025, the 24-hour economy is coming to Ghana. The nation builder, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, is coming back to power. Mr. Speaker, on this note, let me thank you for indulging me and let me serve a caution that victory is certain, victory will come, the NDC is coming to power, and no amount of machination, no amount of cajoling, by the grace of the Almighty Allah, we must send these people to a position so that next time they have opportunity to serve Ghana, they won't take it ordinary Ghanaian for granted. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, it's now the turn of Honorable Dr. Stephen Amoy.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this prestigious opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I think if there's any house captioned as August House,
Honorable members, please.
If there's any house captioned as August House in Ghana, the Parliament House stands tall. And accordingly, we need to accord this house all the needed sincerity, honesty, truth, and make sure that we set good examples for those out there, those who gave us the mandate to serve them. So when we are here presenting all these pieces of information, we shouldn't forget about the fact that we have Allah Akbar, who is handling whatever we say, in spite of the political gains we want. Mr. Speaker, I am surprised that my own brother, I respect most, Honorable John Jinopo, trying to say that they care for and about teachers. A social democratic fraternity that cancels the allowance of the poor teacher says that he cares about them. It is very interesting. Is it that they are toying with is it that they are joking with Ghanaians? Or they think politics, as they say, is all about communist inferior tactics and lies? Mr. Speaker, they deceive Ghanaians always by saying that we have borrowed so much. I hold this document, 2016 Financial Budget Statement, page 37, under Euro bonds, $1 billion. $1 billion. $1 billion. Mr. Speaker, dollars, not cedis, to be paid in 2028 and 2029. So they talk as if current debt portfolio is all about MPP government. Deception killed the youngest prophet in the Bible. And Ghanaians, I don't think 2024 Ghanaians prefer Okada policy to free education. It's not possible. How many of them will allow their child to drive Okada after school? And this is their flagship policy for Ghanaians. Ghanaians are there, they are watching and listening. We all know there's hardship. And it is global. Mr. Speaker, I don't want them to take me off what I want to do. NACO's functional life was 3 years. If they care to know, how many years has it been in existence? So it's not about lies and deception. Mr. Speaker, I want to go straight. Anywhere in the world today, budget statements focus principally on the fiscal space. Fiscal space because 2022 that we saw post-COVID impact, the globe's debt to GDP, as time to be corrected, was around 258%. So if my brother quotes our net to 2%, then we are a giant economy. The way it grew negative 3.3, we grew 0.4. As I'm talking to you today, we are growing. The first we grew 3.1. What's projection for next year, Mr. Speaker? It is about 1.4, less than 2%. Ours is 2.8. This is how you manage the economy. They are talking as if we are. They should check their own budget. 2015, their debt to GDP was about 6.9%. They should check. We have no COVID situation, we have no Russia, whatever situation.
the world's inflation rate was not over 200%. If NDC government had been in power under this global situation, even the youngest child in Ghana here, the richest family, would have gone through hunger and starvation. They have no economic policy direction. Whether they adopt expansion fiscal policy or contractionary, I want to ask them. A country that your debt to GDP went as high as he was talking about 92, and we've been able to reduce it to 66.4. Any honest person will love this government. Reducing inflation rate from about 50% to about 33% as I'm talking to you now. In fact, the NDC government left economic growth of 3.4 when we had no COVID. Mr. Speaker, they are saying that we are taxing Ghanaians. I have the document with me here. Between 2014 and 2016, I listed them some time ago. I will not repeat it. Tax items they increase or introduce 26. They don't even understand how to manage the taxation policy. I want to tell them today it is a calibrated policy management strategy that we use. When your debt to GDP is so high, you rather leverage domestically generated revenue, and that's what this government we know how to do best. In spite of all these situations, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask them, how do we manage our fiscal space? They should go and read the PFM Apprentice System Act 921, Section 1, that describes the object of a PFM Act. We need to do so, aligning them to the macroeconomic and the fiscal framework. So, we as a government, that is what 2017, taxes we reduced or we took away amounted to about 17, including even condom and carrier tax. They introduced. Surprisingly, they say they are social democrat. Not one single pro-poor policy of national tenacity and character that they've been able to implement. Pro-poor policy, the most essential economic services in any country, education and health. They are the people who love the poor, but they took away the allowances that the poor child could benefit from. NDC cannot manage even a district economy, but for propaganda, they cannot. They don't have what it takes. What is their policy direction? Only to lie to Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, this is what I have. Do you know why they can be trusted? NDC's own budget statement, 2014, 15, 16. Mr. Speaker, 2012, their own budget, GDP growth, 9.3. The same 2020, the same budget. In fact, 2015 budget under NDC, GDP growth was 8.8. The same 2012, if you come to 2016 budget, GDP growth was 9.3. 2013 GDP growth was 7.6. 2016 budget, the same year, it was 7.3. Can you trust the same people whose budget, 2 different years, give different figures? You cannot trust this here. I've got the documents here. You can come and take. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is that we are not perfect as a government. But let me tell my brothers, when it comes to the economic management of this country, historically, at present, and in the future, NDC is like a kiosk. You know, we have courses, 2 weeks, 6 months, we get certificate. We are like KNUST in Lagos. You can't compare them to us. They are on different page. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Doctor, just a minute. I can see the minority leader on his feet. Yes, minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, from the onset, the understanding is that you can come under point of order if you recognize that there was factual inaccuracy in the statement. Right, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Deputy Minister responsible for trade and industry is grossly misleading this House. Mr. Speaker, I say this for a simple reason that he's forgetting to realize that the GDP in question were rebased, and the numbers he's churning out are the ones that were not rebased before. Mr. Speaker, the GDP changed before rebase and after rebase. And so I want him, and I challenge him, to bring us these two numbers, before rebase and after rebase. And you will realize that the official document, the budget statement that was presented to this House in 2013 and 2014 made reference to the rebase numbers. His numbers are not the rebase numbers. And so he cannot say the NDC is providing two different economic numbers. So, Speaker, this is a grave matter.
it's a very important matter that I cannot allow this to go. Because, Mr. Speaker, the fact remains that the GDP then were rebased, and the numbers he's giving out are the non-rebased numbers, for the record. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, members, yes, I want to listen to you. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, it is extremely interesting that my learned brother, that I'm in the same academic tradition with, it doesn't matter. Mr. Speaker, I thought he was going to tell us that under the rebased scheme, this is the figure. And otherwise, he couldn't. He is asking me, I'm not a lawyer, but I learned they say that he who alleges. Mr. Speaker, what he's saying is a fallacy. He's confused. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And this says it. Mr. Speaker, look at it. This is a written, tangible, credible evidence, a material evidence. This is what we talk about, materiality, facts. He is lying to Ghanaians. Put that aside. Mr. Speaker, talking about GDP, there were certain figures that I got confused. With the exception of 2011, that because of the jam establishment of this oil sector thing, that we got about 15% check. The following year, it reduced to 7.9. The following year, 7.6. The following year, 4.1. The following year, 4.0. Then 2016, 3.4. Even when we had no economy, the whole economic growth of Ghana was going down as if it was being changed by a bazooka. They have no idea. They don't even understand it. Mr. Speaker, let me explain this to them. I want to ask them this question because I believe in the NDC. Apart from the fact that they display intellectual dishonesty, apart from the fact that they display ego trips, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask them this question to answer Ghanaians. When your fiscal space, whose key elements in terms of definitional elements are one, projects and programs, two, what we finance them with, either debt financing or revenue generation. You said we shouldn't borrow, we agree. You said we shouldn't take taxes, we agree. They should tell us the third financing option. Then they will tell you reduce your government size, I agree. By how much? Against their obligations. They don't even understand these things. The problem with the NDC is that they are supposed to accept the fact that when it comes to the economic management, we are their seniors. We are far superior. In fact, if COVID had happened and the NDC, Mr. Speaker, I'm 100% sure in your hometown by now, nobody will believe you. They don't know what they are doing. They are confused. And now they are even saying that 24-hour and then they come out with any policy. I'm advising them today, Mr. Speaker, put that aside. The reason this government is the best government is that, Mr. Speaker, a government that understands the fact that I need to cut down my expenditure. Go and check 2023. Our expenditure target and then the actuals have difference of positive 14.something%. They should go and check. From 121 billion, thereabout, we did 104 billion. This illustrates, without any ambiguity and debate, that we have a serious government that understands cost control, to consolidate, to restore, to stabilize the economy. They don't know all these facts. You cannot sit there and say reduce taxes, increase taxes. They just say all these choruses because of political capital. I am telling them today that where Ghana is going under His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, even other countries on the continent of Africa are calling us. Because they keep on making these fundamental mistakes. One, all the Francophone countries do not have economic sovereignty. They should know that, and I want to correct them. Their economic framework is enshrined and integrated in that of France. They don't have Central Bank of Ghana to set their own macroeconomic policies. If they don't know that part. Two, the best way to assess how your country is performing is to use the benchmark of the globe. You don't compare Ghana to Togo. You don't know what you are doing. We have different obligations in terms of expenditure. Mr. Speaker, not only that, they always claim that we are having the highest debt to GDP. They should go and check. Between the year 2000 and 2008, our debt portfolio got increased from about 9.2 to about 121 billion, over 1,400%. They have the worst record. The fact of the matter is that, Mr. Speaker, our brothers, they appreciate the fact that we always come here, we are capitalistic. We rather think about the poor. Check all the pro-poor policies in kind and cash. LEAP, who implemented LEAP? Who implemented National Health Insurance? Who implemented FKIP? Who implemented free SHS? And the very people that are saying that when they...
Honorable member, you are left with 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is that I am telling them today, Ghanaians will not prefer that their children will be riding motorbike to eat. They prefer that their children will have free school so that they will become Signamwa, honorable member like you that I wanted to become. Like them, like former President Mahama, like President Nana Dankwa, they don't want their children to be riding. You come here and enjoy like this, and you say that when you get power, you will let those other children ride motorbike. Please, I want to find out whether they have churches and mosques in their constituencies. You can't take away the element of God. The fact of the matter is that on the continent of Africa, those who can manage the economy best, you can't take away MPP government. And they know. Probably, they are doing this out of 3 main information distortion models. 1, intellectual dishonesty, because some of them are very intelligent. 2, display of ego trips. And the last one is unconscious incompetence. Mr. Speaker, I'm very serious about this. Mr. Speaker, I'm very serious about this. Mr. Speaker, I have advice. In spite of my presentation, I have this advice to end.
30 seconds.
In concluding, I would like to advise this country, both NDC and LPP government, that cutting down costs, they should adopt the model of correction and then regression analysis, so they can select all the items that do not impact GDP and clear all of them. 2, the recycling of when you're in opposition, no matter what the government does, NDC they do, MPP we do.
Honorable members, we have present in the chamber distinguished visitors from the Parliament of Uganda. I have the pleasure to introduce them to you. They are coming from the Committee on Government Assurances and Implementation. So their committee is Government Assurances and Implementation Committee. They are here on a steady visit. And they are also here to share ideas with colleagues and draw some knowledge on government structures, existing policies, laws, and regulations guiding our Government Assurances Committee. The visit is also to create a platform for networking between honorable members and their Ugandan counterparts with an aim to deepening relations. And so we have the chair and leader of the delegation being in the person of an honorable lady, Honorable Betty Nambuze Makireke. I think I've met her at a number of conferences. Yes. Betty. Yes, Betty is quite known. You are most welcome. The members are Honorable Nelson Okelo, Honorable Agnes Amedi, Honorable Joseph Shiwungu, Honorable John Bosco Imboya, Honorable John Luke Inyensiko Chobe, and the committee clerk, Miss Christine Chumuyendo. I'm sorry if I got the pronunciation wrong. And also, we have the secretary to the delegation, Miss Ampere Ameria. Honorable members, on behalf of the House, I warmly welcome the delegation to Parliament and I wish them fruitful deliberations. I hope you have time to interact with them, and at the end of the day, the networking will go on to deepen the relations between Ghana and our brothers and sisters in Uganda. Once again, you are warmly welcome. We are now debating the budget statement and economic policy of government. Since you have a structure like ours, you will know that those at my right are those in government, and those to the left are those in opposition. So we'll just listen to a few of them, and I'm now moving to the third person coming from the opposition side, and that is in the person of Honorable Kweku Ricketts Hagen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the budget debate. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, I want to first of all touch on something that my honorable brother, Dr. Stephen Amwa said. And I think this is the problem with what the finance minister said earlier on, that Ghana's economy is approaching 1 trillion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the economy of Ghana, as Honorable Atuforsen said, was rebased in 2018. When you rebase your economy, you change your base year to capture anything that you have not captured in the past. So the rebasing was done with a base year change from 2006 to 2010. So everything that was in that period that was not captured was basically rolled forward to the future economy, which is why the economy is growing at a pace that is great. Also, the GDP figures before your rebasing will definitely be different from your rebasing after the GDP after your rebasing. The GDP after your rebasing will usually be more than the GDP before your rebasing. We do this for inflation and GDP. And I think that correction should be done so that in the future, they just don't talk about economy is reaching 2 trillion, two different figures are being presented. Figures are presented as a result of the rebasing. Mr. Speaker, if I go to the main issue that I want to talk about today, Mr. Speaker, is to do with our debt. Ghana is being swallowed with debt, excessive debt, astronomical debt, Mr. Speaker, and we are not paying. We have unilaterally stopped paying our external debt. At the end of 2002, debt to GDP was over 100%, 102. Today, we are being told that our debt is nearly 600 billion. But, Mr. Speaker, the external component of our debt is not being paid by this government. We haven't paid our external debt since December. And we are saying we have turned the corner. Which corner? You are not paying your debt and you said you've turned the corner.
Mr. Speaker, this budget is not only empty, it's not only uninspiring, it is actually a dysfunctional and a distorted budget. Because the moment you put in your external debt, the servicing of your external debt here, everything in this budget changes. Your deficit will change because you will have to add about 40 billion of external debt servicing to it. Therefore, your deficit will be almost 100 billion. Your space, fiscal space will change. Your growth will change. Your inflation will change. Your interest rate will change. Mr. Speaker, this is basically an economic garbage, this budget. It does not inspire anyone. There is nothing in here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you the external debt that we are not paying. Mr. Speaker, we owe the Chinese 1.9 billion, which we are not paying. We owe the Paris Club 2 billion, which we are not paying. We owe the Paris Club 3.8 billion, which we are not paying. Mr. Speaker, we owe Templeton 2.5 billion, which we are not paying. Mr. Speaker, with multilateral debt, we owe 8.8. Ghana is not the highest when it comes to multilateral debt in Africa. We owe the most, 8.8 billion, and we are not paying. Mr. Speaker, Eurobond, which my friend mentioned, we owe Eurobond 14.9 billion, which we are not paying. The Eurobond that is due now, due in August, we haven't paid it. Mr. Speaker, we have done 17 Eurobond tranches in this country since we started doing Eurobond in President Kufuor's time. Mr. Speaker, from President Kufuor to President Mills to President Mahama, 16 years, we did 4 billion Eurobond. That's 4 of them. Mr. Speaker, under this government, we have done 12 tranches of Eurobond. 12! In 7 years. We did 4 in 16 years. Mr. Speaker, to a tune of $11 billion. This is how much we owe, and we are not paying. Mr. Speaker, let me give you a picture here. And what they've done. Mr. Speaker, sorry. This government intentionally did certain bond with the intention of never paying. And let me tell you why. Mr. Speaker, Eurobonds are usually done for a period of 10 to 15 years. That's why the Eurobond done on the Kufuor was done for 10 years, 750. NDC made provision for that bond to be paid. We paid 250 before we left office. The remaining 500, we have put money in the sinking fund to pay, which they used in paying this. The one that is due, they haven't paid. Mr. Speaker, they did Eurobond in 2018. May 2018. That Eurobond is supposed to basically expire in 2048. For 30 years, instead of the 10, 15 years. Mr. Speaker, this is all the Eurobonds we've done in this country. 17. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, they did another Eurobond in some tranches for 31 years. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, one of the tranches of Eurobond that we did matures in 2061. Mr. Speaker, that's for 41 years. Mr. Speaker, in 2021, they did an Eurobond in March 2021, which is supposed to mature in 2041. That's 20 years. Mr. Speaker, they know they won't be around to pay this. And that is the reason why they've started not actually paying. Mr. Speaker, this is the situation that we are in. We have been swallowed by debt. Swallowed by debt, yet we are not paying. Yes, they have written a budget here. They say they've turned the corner. But at the same time, they say they are not out of the woods yet. Mr. Speaker, if you turn the corner in the woods, you are lost. That's what this budget is. This government is completely lost. They are incompetent. Their performance is abysmal. And they won't listen. They have brought all of us here to this budget. Mr. Speaker, if this were to be a handing over note to the NDC, this is a very poor handing over note. This is the legacy of this government. This is what they are leaving behind. Mr. Speaker, you ask them what they've used the money for, they will tell you, oh, flagship programs, planting for food and jobs, 1D, 1F. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the industrial, the 1D, 1F, this is the picture of the 1D, 1F. Mr. Speaker, and I'll hand this over to you. This is the picture of 1D, 1F. Ghana is the only country where the more industries we set up, they claim 169. The less we perform when it comes to industry. Mr. Speaker, the numbers here are negative. And I will tell this in. Mr. Speaker, the story is not different from planting for food and jobs. You can see it in inflation. You can see it in GDP. It tells a story. The contribution of food to GDP is been declining. When you go to inflation, the bulk of our inflation is food inflation. So what is it that this country is planting? That the more they plant, the less they harvest. The more this government plants, the less they harvest. Mr. Speaker, it's a very sad story. They are so incompetent. Mr. Speaker, this government is so incompetent that even the very debt that they have created, they cannot even restructure it. They did the domestic debt. We saw what happened. Flip-flopping. Today, pension funds are involved. Tomorrow they are not. They were supposed to do an eligible amount of 137 billion. By the time they got to it, the money is up to 96 billion. Yet, they could have done this area without even including the pension people and achieved the 80% that IMF gave them. But they went around dancing around the debt exit. Now, Mr. Speaker, the reason why they are afraid to go and negotiate their external debt is that they are going to negotiate with seasoned negotiators. They don't know what to do. They can't bully them like they did the domestic debt exchange. Mr. Speaker, today, an announcement from the Eurobond market. They have rejected Zambia's proposal. Zambia is now supposed to go and pay their money, or they call the insurance on the bond. And you know what will happen? If they call the insurance, everybody is insured. If you call the insurance, it's like a car insurance. It means that your premium are going to go up. This is the situation Ghana is in. And they will tell you that we've been talking to the IMF with this. And we will be going. All that this budget says, this budget just mentioned that they are preparing to go and negotiate. When? When are they doing that, Mr. Speaker? This government has failed abysmally. They have failed Ghanaians. We are where we are, Mr. Speaker, because this government has overborrowed and we don't know what they have used the money for. There is nothing to show for it. They have spent the money anyhow. Corruption, endemic corruption in this government. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians can't wait to see the back of this government. They are talking about breaking the 8. Do you break 8 with this? You can't pay your debt. You say you have turned the corner. You can't pay your debt. You say you are growing. How can you grow when you owe money, Mr. Speaker, in our own homes? You owe money. You receive your salary. You drink 4 bottles of beer. Now you are not paying your external debt. You are drinking 8 bottles. Because you are not paying your debt, you said you've turned the corner. When your creditors are waiting for you at your door. Mr. Speaker, the story about this government, we will recommend and I think that's the bill we have to bring to this house, that every president will have to set up a presidential library so that the story of bad president can be put in that library so future generations can read, not to repeat this government again in the history of this country. This country has been failed by the NPP government abysmally, Mr. Speaker, everywhere you look. Why do you think inflation?
Remember, 2 minutes more, 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, why do you think inflation is gone now? And they'll be telling you all sorts of stories. Because the Bank of Ghana has stopped printing money under the watch of IMF. So the portion of inflation that relates to printing of money has gone down. But food inflation is still the biggest. The graph is here, Mr. Speaker. I will tell that graph in as well, so that we'll be able to see what is actually happening. This government has failed. They have in their own budget. The records are all in there. Mr. Speaker, they put the right numbers in the budget this time because of the IMF. That is the quantitative side of the budget. Yet, they are turning lines to the same numbers on the qualitative information that they give us. This budget is bipolar. The quantitative side of the budget will give you the numbers. The qualitative is talking about turning the corner. Mr. Speaker, the problem we have in this country can only be resolved when we see the back of this government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah.
Honorable members, it's now the turn of Honorable Kweku Kwating. Honorable members, in his absence, we will move to Honorable Sheila Battels.
Have the women. We have the women.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm listening to my brothers on the other side. I realize that all of them are men, and in fact, with the conversation with my last brother, Honorable Ricketts, I realized that his focus was on Eurobond issuance. I decided to look into it because I realized that it's not only our government that has looked at Eurobonds as an option of financing our budget. In fact, in 2013, which was the NDC government, they issued 1 billion of Eurobonds. 1 billion. In 2015, they issued 1 billion of Eurobond.
Wow. Is it true? 1 billion?
Yes. In 2014, they issued 1 billion. Mr. Speaker, the MPP did 2021. We did 525 million.
Wow.
Of Eurobond.
Wow, that's cool.
In 2019, we issued 750 million.
Wow.
Mr. Speaker, really, when you look at it, the NDC has issued gargantuan billions of bonds, Eurobonds. And what we are paying is the cumulative effect of all the bonds from their government. So, we shouldn't stand here and dwell on one line of financing that the government has seen it as prudent to use. Mr. Speaker, we are talking on the back of the worst global economic crisis, and not something that has affected only Ghana. It is something that has happened across the world.
We have the women.
And my sister rightly spoke when Deputy Finance Minister was speaking. You can't just look at Ghana in isolation. you have to compare to other countries across the world. And you realize even across West Africa, the economic crisis hits every country. And Ghana is doing well in recovering from this crisis. Mr. Speaker, we saw hikes in crude oil prices. It hit Ghana as well. But because of the innovative Gold for Oil program, Ghana was able to see stability in petrol prices for the ordinary Ghanaian to be able to budget and manage their finances. Mr. Speaker, we saw global supply chain interruptions. We saw soaring global interest costs. We saw tightening global policy rates. We saw that across the world, people were not able to save. Even in the most advanced economies, people were struggling.
Tell them.
We saw a slowdown in manufacturing and across board. This resulted in less savings. And that, of course, affected our ability to borrow from the international markets.
Tell them.
Mr. Speaker, what happened in the last few years? We refused to listen that the global economic crisis was real. COVID was real. The Russia-Ukraine war was real. And the former president, Mahama, as you rightly said, he goes abroad and he goes to say that the global economic crisis was caused because of this. So why do we come and act as ostriches? Mr. Speaker, all these razzmatazz that our brothers on the other side are putting up, this is not a political platform. This is a platform for us to discuss what is important to Ghanaians in terms of how they are able to eat 3 times a day. What goes into their pockets for them to be able to support their families. That is what is important. The drama is not important. Let us lay it aside. Let us look at this budget. What does it present to us? Mr. Speaker, I look at this budget and I see a government that has consistently worked hard to ensure that the ordinary Ghanaian benefits from this economy and the cake is rightly shared across board. We have seen a government that has managed inflation. Pre-COVID, we saw an average inflation of about 7%. Then we saw that in the last few years, last year, we hit 54%. As the Deputy Finance Minister said, we have brought it down now to 35.2%. You may say that is not good. You may say that is not good. But what is the comparative? So you look at the other countries in West Africa and you see an average of 4.6%. So if Ghana is doing 3.5%, are we not doing well?
Tell them.
Mr. Speaker, we are also talking about the economy's growth. And my brother also, Dr. Amwa, also said, my colleague, Mr. Speaker, he spoke about the growth rate. And we are trying to say that it is not important to recognize that if your economy has grown to $1 trillion, then it is something to applaud. Mr. Speaker, it is something to applaud. In economic crisis, we have been able to grow and not recede. And when you are growing, it means that your economy is improving. So we are right to say that the economy is taking a turn, and it's taking a turn for the good. Mr. Speaker, in advanced countries, the assets growth rate was about 3.6%. In 2020, we came down to 2.8%. In advanced countries, they came down to 2.8%. Now the average growth rate is about 3% to 3.5%. Now, if you look at emerging markets, the average growth rate was pegged at 4.6%. In the COVID year, it came down to 1.8%. And now it's rising to between 4 to 4.1%. But in Ghana, our real GDP growth rate is at 3.2%. If we compare this to last year, between January and June, we did 2.9%.
Tell them.
So it means that this year we have done better at 3.2%. Mr. Speaker, things that have happened in the past few years leading up to today, I'm talking from COVID to date.
Yeah.
These economic external shocks resulted in challenges, for instance, in us raising the revenues that we were expecting, especially on the bond market. We know that the capital market closed to us because of the ratings that we had. So we had to depend on domestic revenue. We went through the domestic debt exchange program, at least for the domestic debtors.
Honourable Member, you are left with less than 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But then my brother also said, my colleague on the other side, he said, he talked about external debt. Mr. Speaker, that is why we went to the IMF. What was the point of going to the IMF? To restructure the debt. And we have worked with them in restructuring the domestic. And so let's not talk about the external, because he went on and on about the external debt that we have. It is also something that is going to be done, also as part of the IMF restructuring. Mr. Speaker, one thing I will commend this government, and I'll commend His Excellency the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, who, by God's grace, in 2025, he will become the next president of Ghana. They say that they don't understand why he focuses a lot on digitalization. And that is the reason Ghanaians must never make the mistake of bringing the NDC back into power. Mr. Speaker, we need to move forward as a country. We need to put in place the systems and processes that are necessary to ensure that Ghana is productive enough to be able to generate the revenue that is needed for this country to progress. And what is needed is what His Excellency has begun to put in place, which is the Ghana card system, address system, interoperability, and all the other systems that he has put in place.
Honourable members, we now listen to Honourable Richard Achampong.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. I carefully listened to my sister, Honourable Sheila Battles. Yes, you are the only lady speaking today. So at least we have to pamper you. But the point made by Honourable Rekit was that from President Kufuor up to the end of NDC administration, that was 2016, we borrowed $4.5 billion from the Eurobond market. And in the space of 7 years, under Nana Addo Kufuor and Bawumia, they've done $11 billion. This is the argument we are putting out. We are not denying the fact that NDC did not borrow. We borrowed. But we use it for a purpose, and we made provision for it through the sinking fund for repayment. In this case, do you have any provision for this repayment? Because even you are borrowing for 30 to 40 years, so you have no plan whatsoever for the repayment. This is the argument you are making, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, MPP is saying they've turned the corner, and they want to break the 8. So we need to measure their performance from 2017 to 2023, if indeed there is any space to allow them to continue whatever damage they want to cause to this economy. Mr. Speaker, I refer them to the 2017 budget, paragraph 1, page 1, paragraph 5. The former finance minister had this to say. Mr. Speaker, let us acknowledge that we have inherited a challenged economy with Item 1, considerable debt overhang and rising interest payment caused by excessive borrowing. and expenditure overruns and accumulated arrears caused by fiscal indiscipline, excessive sole sourcing, and weak commitment controls. Mr. Speaker, the last one is revenue underperformance caused by leakages, loopholes, and tax exemptions. All these 3 bullet points, what have changed, Mr. Speaker? What has changed? By the end of 2016, our debt stock stood at 120 billion Ghana cedis. Today, the finance minister is reporting that our debt is 567 billion. In the midst of domestic debt exchange program, so they are telling us that they made savings of 61 billion. If you add back the 61 billion, our debt portfolio stood by the end of September 622 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, in this case, if you want to divide this debt for all of us, each one is owing 19,000 Ghana cedis. 19,000. Yes. Under 2016, each one was owing 4,000 Ghana cedis. We moved it from 4,000 to 19,000. This is the current situation we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, by the end of 2016, our interest payment alone stood at 10 billion Ghana cedis. In the 2024 budget, they are projecting to pay 55 billion as interest payment. 55 billion in the midst of domestic debt exchange. And you are here telling us that you turn the corner. Because the passengers were sleeping, so when they now trying to turn the corner, the customer shorted. So still they are at the ICU, they don't know where they are. That's why they can conclude by saying they've turned the corner. Mr. Speaker, the economy that we are talking about is about our pockets. What is the inflation rate now? They inherited inflation number of 50%. Today they are reporting 32%. 35.2% of inflation. Mr. Speaker, the finance minister told us in the budget that the loan portfolio of all the banks have increased to 72.9 billion Ghana cedis. And capital adequacy ratio has moved from 14.1% to 18%. What it means therefore is that, Mr. Speaker, about 3.9% of the people who took the 72.9 billion loan, about 3.9% of them cannot pay the loan. And the banks have charged this against their profit and loss account, which is about 2.4 billion Ghana cedis. The meaning is, they can't pay dividends to their shareholders, they can't pay bonuses to their workers, they can't expand their business, let alone to create more employment. I'm talking that you say a funny thing in the budget. The minister is telling us that 1B1F, there are 269 projects under various stages of completion, and 169 is in operation. How can you have 169 companies operating, which have created 160,000 jobs, and still you are projecting the industry sector will grow negative 2.2? Because let me show you, Mr. Speaker, the performance of the MPP. By the end of 2016, the industry sector grew by negative 2.1%. With that 1D1F, there's other 169 companies, and they are still projecting to grow the industry sector by negative 2.2%. It tells you the 1D1F they are talking about is facade. They are just trying to confuse everybody. Manufacturing sector and NDC 2.4% growth. 2023, they are growing at negative 1.1%. Electricity, NDC did 8.8% growth. MPP is doing negative 0.7%. That's why they can't do even rural electrification projects. Water and sewage, we did 7.7%. MPP is doing negative 4.9%. Under construction, we did 3.5%. MPP is doing negative 8.9% in 2023. Trade, repair of vehicles, household, we did 7.7%. They are doing negative 3.7%. How can you turn the corner with these numbers? And you are complaining because of the war in Ukraine and Russia, post-COVID-19 problem. Everybody is complaining in the MPP, apart from we in the NDC. Mr. Speaker, we will never allow this government to continue to mess everybody up. Enough of the destruction. Enough of the ineptity. Enough of the incompetency. Come 2025 January, Mr. Speaker, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is ready to take us from all this mess they've created. And when we talk about 24-hour economy, they are talking about night market. What is night market? I Chobas operate 24/7. What kind of analogy is this? Because, Mr. Speaker, we have service institutions like passport office, DVLA. People pay for their services. So if you do 24-hour, any point in time, I go there, I process my document, and I'll pay you your money. We are here crying over underperformance of revenue. Last 4 months ago, Ghana Revenue Authority deployed the inspectors to all the malls and the big shops to audit invoices and receipts. I confronted the minister and they told me it yielded a positive result. If it yielded a positive result, why have you changed that practice? You are crying for the performance of revenue. There is an activity you can undertake to generate more revenue. You stop that activity and you want to impose more taxes on us. We will never support you to impose more taxes on us. Already we are suffocating. We are dying. You complain that nurses and teachers are running away from this country for greener pasture. Why? Let's do things that can make us a better nation. Mr. Speaker, I have a proposal for them. I will never support any tax angle.
You have less than 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I will run it within that space. No new taxes. Concentrate on the voluntary compliance because there are people who are ready to pay the taxes. Just do the compliance and many people will get to pay their taxes. Don't introduce any new taxes. We need enforcement of the existing tax handles so that many people will also pay their tax. Remove the straight levies from Get Fund, National Health Insurance, COVID-19, and put them where they belong to, so that people can do the input and output, so we get more revenue. Mr. Speaker, I will end by touching on the legal education. In the budget, the Attorney General, Mr. Speaker, is proposing that they will conduct entrance examination for 3,000 LLB students, 3,000, but will engage only 1,500. So, ab initio, they are set out to disqualify 1,500 people. What kind of arrangement is this? It's in the budget. Maybe you've not read your budget. Mr. Speaker, somebody wants to pay his own school fees. Create the space for them, give them the access to get the legal education. You know you have a backlog of 3,000. And you are telling us in the budget that I will only take 1,500. If this is not witchcraft, what is this, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, on this note, I'll call my colleagues to tease out the important items in the budget, raise it, but I'll conclude by saying that nobody should support any tax angle. There must be compliance, there must audit invoices and receipts for people to pay their taxes. They can't introduce additional taxes. Already, we are dying. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Honorable members, having regard to the state of business in the House, I direct that sittings be held outside the prescribed period. We now have the last person. I'm not sure he's around. Yes, maybe leadership.
Speaker,
Yes.
The Honorable Opoku Martin has sounded that he's on his way. He had to attend to an emergency, so he's on his way. In the meantime, I think there's one more person from the other side. One of the things.
Well, honorable members, we are told that the next person, which is Honorable Kweku Kwate, is on his way coming, and therefore we should take those who are available whilst we wait on him. The next person on the side of the minority is Honorable Thomas Ampem. That is 10 minutes. Sorry. Yes?
Mr. Speaker, I just want to draw your attention to something.
you have a situation where we are going to have two people debating here. Usually part of the debate is also to debunk and respond to some of the things they do. I believe they will have somebody there, unless Kokukwati is the last person to debate. If yes, or the only person, we should have the next person in line to do that.
Actually, he's the last for today. And then Honorable Thomas Ampem is the last on your side for today. We'll continue tomorrow. We'll continue tomorrow, no problem. Yes, Honorable, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if the members on the other side don't have the men to speak, we have many of our people here who are willing to speak. So you can give their time to our people. I mean, they have shown that they are not interested in this debate. Mr. Speaker, we were in this house in 2017 when Honorable Ken Oforiatta came here to present his maiden budget. Mr. Speaker, he was accompanied by the Vice President of the land. Dr. Mahmoud Baumia was in his company. In fact, we saw a lot of people in this current government here in the chamber. The governor of the Bank of Ghana and his two deputies were here. The top here were filled by members of the diplomatic corps. The media in Ghana pitched camps all over the precincts of this parliament was filled with media houses. The basement, everywhere, they had their mini studios broadcasting live proceedings from parliament. Fast forward in 2023, the finance minister was virtually deserted. The vice president decided that he won't be part of the presentation of the budget. The governor and all these people were not here. And in fact, I felt for the minister. He felt so dejected to the extent that he believed that the lizard that jumped from the high Iroko tree to the ground said he would praise himself if no one else did. So he quickly called his data bank failed finance ministry to organize a hero's welcome for him as he returns to the ministry. Mr. Speaker, we saw videos going viral of the finance minister returning to the ministry, and then staff of the ministry had lined up singing in a very discordant and uninspiring way, Yedim Konim, Yediko, Yebesa Edibium, accompanied by an offbeat dancing by the finance minister. Mr. Speaker, this finance minister has shown that he has nothing to celebrate. In fact, when he decided to even go borrowing, he came back to throw a kenke party in the ministry for successfully adding more to our debt in this country. In fact, Mr. Speaker, if you achieve nothing, you end up celebrating mediocrity. So that is what we are seeing today. This government is celebrating inflation at over 30%. When we had inflation around 17%, we were sad. We celebrated only a single-digit inflation in this country. So this is the record of this current administration. Mr. Speaker, in this budget, you realize that the government intends to raise total revenue of about 176 billion. The same way, they intend to spend in excess of 266 billion. They intend to add additional 50 billion to our debt stock. Mr. Speaker, as if that is not all, they have commitment of another 11 billion cedis. And so this government will have to finance the budget with more than 61 billion cedis. Because they don't have access to the international bond market, the only option is to go to our local banks to borrow. And by borrowing from our local institutions, they are going to crowd out local businesses. So our industries are not going to grow in this year because they are going to compete with government in borrowing from the banks. This is the government that says that they want to focus on the private sector. Clearly, this government is not going to do us any good at all in this current, with this current budget. Mr. Speaker, if you look also on page 170 of this budget, you realize that they have indicated that the projected outturn by the fourth quarter
in the amount of money they will put in our sinking fund is only 159 million. Meanwhile, they budgeted about 370 million cedis to be paid into the sinking fund. So by the end of this year, they would have done less than 50% of that. This year budget for 2024, they are projecting that they will pay some 241 million into the sinking fund. With this track record, we know that they will even do 50% of that. Mr. Speaker, what is worrying is that by 2025, all the deferred debts that this government has done, we will have to cough up in excess of 5 billion cedis to pay some of the debts that they have deferred. At this rate, where are we going to get the money to pay those debts when they fall due? They are only setting us up for another default. But Mr. Speaker, if we talk of prudent debt management, that is what President Mahama and Setepe, supported by Dr. Atto-Forson, did in this country. They built a sinking fund which allowed you to pay off all the debt that fell due in 2017 when you came. How do you expect the debt that you have accumulated and deferred to be paid? In fact, the minister likes quoting, so let me tell him that if you look at what President Mahama and his officers did, that is what Proverbs 13:22 says, that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But for William, Timothy, and Ken, what they are doing is akin to what the foolish rich man did in the Bible. That says he said to his soul that he should rejoice. He did not think about the future. We need to plan effectively for our future. Mr. Speaker, this government does not listen at all. They don't listen to anybody. In this house, they came to present the previous budget and told us that they intend to centralize the collection of property rates. Upon all the advice that they should not do that, they went ahead to do it. And they have deprived the assemblies of the revenues that they need to work in the various assemblies. If we take an assembly like Katamanso, for instance, Mr. Speaker, last year when they collected property rates on their own, they were able to collect 7 million cedis. This year, with a centralized collection, you have sent them only 700,000 cedis. That is 1/10 of what they collected on their own. If you take my beloved Sojaman District Assembly, last year on their own, they collected in excess of 160,000. Today, with a centralized collection, you have given them 4,800 as of last month. You have deprived them of their revenue. What have you used the monies for? And you see, what is worrisome is that you told us is that it is GRA that is going to collect the property rates. You ended up giving it to a private person, a private company to do the collection. As we speak now, you advertise myassembly.gov as the account in which the property rates will be paid to. It ended up that the account from which the monies were transferred to the various assemblies is from a private account from Fidelity Bank. What have you done with the monies that you collected? Is it the case that you collected the money but have not sent them to the assemblies, or you haven't collected them? We cannot allow a simple U-turn in this budget for this to go with. We must investigate it and find out what you have done with the monies. Mr. Speaker.
Two more minutes.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, I heard Dr. Baumia speaking to a group of people in Tamale or somewhere that President Mahama represents the past and he, Baumia, represents the future. Looking at the state of Ghana's economy today, will we be safe to send Baumia into the future of this country? The future of Ghana with Baumia is a hopeless future. The future of Ghana with Baumia is a disastrous future. The future of Ghana with Baumia is a catastrophic future. The future of Ghana with Baumia is a retrogressive future. Mr. Speaker, look, under the leadership of Nana Addo, the Ghana economy. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that under the leadership of Nana Addo as Ghana's president, Ghana's economy no atonsium. Under the leadership of Baumia as head of the economic management team, Ghana's economy not atonsium. Under the leadership of Kenoforiata as finance minister, Ghana's economy not atonsium. Under the leadership of Abna Oseyasari as deputy finance minister, Ghana economy not consumed. Under the leadership of even Ken Japan as the opposition leader in MPP, who controls over 30% of MPP, Ghana's economy not consumed. Mr. Speaker, under your leadership, and
Honourable members, you don't bring the speaker into your debate. Yes, we now take the last person for the day, but I'm finding it difficult to locate him. Please, majority leadership may nominate somebody. I can see the Honourable Kweku Kwatin. Honourable Kweku Kwatin. May we get somebody in place of him, or we call it a day to continue tomorrow? I want a well-prepared submission. So I don't want to push anybody to get up to say things that the person is not fully sure of. So we could adjourn and then tomorrow we take that into consideration. I'll be around.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
You want to do it?
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm making an application. Mr. Speaker, I'm making an application. Mr. Speaker, we have Honorable Kujo, MP for Ifia, to take up the last slot on our side. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, no.
Yes, a proposal is made. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I oppose the proposal. The name submitted to you is not my very good friend Oku. So I'm making a counter proposal that Honorable Kodo do the debate for that slot. Otherwise, we take a vote on it.
We will run him to the
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I think on numerous occasions, lists that have been sent to you have been amended. This is a very ridiculous proposal from the minority chief whip, that we take a vote on the amendment being proposed by the majority. Where is he coming from? This chief whip for the minority, if you allow him, is capable of setting this house on fire.
Honorable Kujo, are you prepared to take your chance now?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
You have 10 minutes. He's now a full minister. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I don't fault you. He's a full minister.
No, he's
there are so many that sometimes you forget which ministries some of them will be. But he's a very good man and capable colleague in the House. So I'm sure he will do justice to the topic.
Oh, he's my friend long before he became a politician. And even when he became a politician, he's still my friend. So I know him very well. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, we made an application. You have graciously upheld the application. You've granted it. Mr. Speaker, I don't understand all these stray bullets coming from the minority front bench. If they want to reduce this debate to the past Mahama and the future Baumia, they should say so. We are ready for you. But all these attacks, you have no focus on this budget. You want to attack Baumia? Bring it on. We have your Mahama. Bring your Mahama on. We'll take you on. Baumia represent the future. You don't know that? Baumia represent the future. What did your Mahama do? We are waiting for all of you. Mr. Speaker, I don't understand. We are waiting for you. What did you do in your 8 years? What did you do in your 8 years? Kujo is ready to debate. You will hear him. You will sit down and hear him. You will see what he will tell you. What did you do in your 8 years? What did your Mahama do? What did your Mahama do? You want to compare your Mahama to Baumia, the future of Ghana? We shall see. We're ready for you. Mr. Speaker, let's leave them to the past.
I thought we had agreed to give Honorable Kujo the opportunity. And then all of a sudden, the Deputy Majority Leader is making his submissions. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I cannot understand the Honorable Member of Parliament for Futu constituency, the Honorable Markin. Mr. Speaker, the fact remains that the Vice President is the Chairman of the Economic Management Team. Mr. Speaker, the fact remains that this budget can never be prepared without the input of the Chairman of the Economic Management Team. Mr. Speaker, it is only right for members of Parliament to make reference to the stewardship of the Vice President. Mr. Speaker, he shouldn't run away from the records of the Vice President. Defend the records of the Vice President. We all know that we are in this mess under his supervision. So please, do not bring President Mahama in this matter. He's not the one collecting your taxes. President Mahama is not the one collecting the taxes of state. And so it is only right for members of Parliament to make references to who prepared the budget statement and who is superintending upon this economic mess we are going through. Mr. Speaker, that is the fact, and it should rest there.
Honorable members, it's the turn of Honorable Kujo to take 10 minutes to make a submission. But please, let's accept that the highest political platform for national debate is Parliament. It's Parliament. Let's accept that. That is what the concept is about. The highest political platform for national debate is Parliament. With this, we go on. Honorable Kujo. Majority Leader.
Yes, Speaker, you just indicated that you are granting the minister 10 minutes. The minister is...
Yes, my attention has been drawn to that, so I'll give him the...
Because you repeated it.
I'll give him the 15 minutes.
Yes. But, Mr. Speaker, yes, we agree that the highest platform, political platform, is here. But we have rules that debate should relate to the subject matter. It should have relevance. We have rules here.
Nobody has made irrelevant submissions here today. All the submissions they've made are relevant. It's neither the minority or the majority who determines the relevance. It's the Speaker. And as so determined. Yes, Honorable Kujo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the debate on the budget statement and economic policy of the government of Ghana for the 2024 financial year, presented to your House, Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday, November 15, 2023, by Ken Oforiasa, Minister for Finance, on the authority of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana. not on the authority of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget of the president, not the budget of the vice president. I am a member of the economic management team, Mr. Speaker. And I emphasize that, Mr. Speaker, this document is not my budget. I debate every point I'm going to make on this budget to make an emphatic statement that it is one of the best budgets this House has ever witnessed and requested to approve. Mr. Speaker, all economies around the world, including Ghana's, go through economic cycles triggered by some significant global event. And Ghana's situation is peculiar to oil prices movement and our country's export commodity price movement. In our peculiar case, in 2020, a global disease called coronavirus hit us and dipped the performance of this government, led by His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Now, it is not only Ghana that got hit, Mr. Speaker, so many economies. So when you look at the budget statement from pages 8 to 18 on global and regional development, performance of the world economy, performance of Africa's economy, performance of West Africa's regional economy has been, the statistics have been provided there, and it gives all the trend indication that, Mr. Speaker, most economies went through a downturn and so many things deteriorated. Ghana wasn't spared the effect of the disease and the subsequent war that came. Ghana wasn't spared. But Ghana having been hit and going through a turnaround, the president, through this budget, has proposed a stability for 2024 and a growth simultaneously, which gives a unique feature of this budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the financial outcomes that have been spelled out here are a result of prudent economic decisions that have been made. Mr. Speaker, this House can bear witness to the fact that throughout our last sittings, whenever members from this House stood up, questions on roads, for example, were asked, and myself, my constituency, road needs are there. Mr. Speaker, these requests drive expenditures unless we do not want to live with the reality. Every request every member has made in this House pertaining to roads in the constituency drive up expenditures. As government tries to respond to that need. And so, Mr. Speaker, when you take the budget and you see a revenue proposal in excess of 176 billion Ghana cedis, an expenditure proposal in excess of 216 billion, and you see a gap which is going to lead to that deficit financing, then, Mr. Speaker, we as a House have a question to ask whether we should respond to the plethora of needs which we in this House as members of Parliament put before government. Whether government should stick to the revenue proposed and ignore the needs we have, or government should borrow. Mr. Speaker, in borrowing, the government through this budget has proposed that it is still going to manage the debt we have, the debt stock, which is not only accumulated by this government or its tenure, but historically, which even includes some Eurobond issued by the NDC when they were in government, it included, and which the interest payment accruing is being serviced by this government. And so when we are talking about it, we should be pragmatic in our responses to the contribution to this budget. That's my plea to the House, Mr. Speaker. But fortunately for us, Mr. Speaker, the energy environment which drives economy have been stable, available. Cars having queued so far to look for fuel to buy. Gas stations haven't advertised no gas. And electricity largely and significantly have been on, except when we are doing what you call maintenance, routine maintenance. And so, Mr. Speaker, when salaries have been paid, and most importantly, a very significant economic budget line called 3 SHS have been absorbed since this government came into power. It is new expenditure line which did not exist in the past, but now existing and very significant, and the budget has absorbed it. It is not cancelling it. And so, Mr. Speaker, given the energy environment the government has sustained in terms of price competitiveness, given fuel availability throughout all this crisis period, we should debate this budget in that context. And when we are doing economic performance analysis, Mr. Speaker, for example, I have heard the debate on this floor, Eurobond issues. Mr. Speaker, let me that when a member stood up and chastised that the government has issued a Eurobond that will mature in 2061. Mr. Speaker, I thought the member was going to clap for the government who put in place a government that has credibility in the world, that the world financial market will take a 30-year loan from us. It is good news, and we should emphasize it.
Just a minority. I'll give you enough time. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, once again, another factual inaccuracy. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister of State responsible for state and enterprises has said, Mr. Speaker, that our light has not gone off unless it is for routine maintenance. Mr. Speaker, he needs to be reminded that not long ago, just within the last 2 weeks, Ghana's light went off because we were unable to pay for gas that we own to Nigeria Gas. And there was doom and so you should be made aware of that and correct the record.
Honorable minority leader, it will come to your turn. It will come to your turn. Yes, please. Honorable Kujo, may you go on. He's going to make his submissions later. Please. Just allow Honorable Kujo to go on. Honorable Kujo.
Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize that when the honorable member, my good friend, Honorable Ricketts Higham, stood up and said Ghana has borrowed for 30 years, he should have clapped for the performance of the government. Because if a government can put a loan with tenure 30 years out there, and the market will lend to Ghana, then it means that we have managed the economy well. Else, Mr. Speaker, you would notice that the longest dated bond Ghana had ever issued until this government came into power wasn't exceeding 10 years. And so, for us, even in a crisis environment, to be able to issue longer dated bond
It is a sign of good economic outlook the market has for the country. And we should be happy about the performance of the government. But Mr. Speaker, the higher expenditure projected in this government in this budget proposes to respond to this need to a large extent. Mr. Speaker, one thing I would also want to put on record in the course of this debate is that when these loans are being contracted, it is not only the tenure that will give indication of whether the government performance is good or bad. The interest rate associated with it. I know when NDC were in government, interest rate on Ghana's loans, bonds, was up to 10%, and I called it microfinance interest rate. That was a reflection of Ghana's economic outlook. Today, that is not the case. And so, in spite of the crisis, Mr. Speaker, I urge all of us to support this budget because it gives the country the turnaround we desire in face of even the crisis that we've gone through. And so all members should support the budget and pass it for government to implement it to meet the needs we have. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.
Honourable members, before we take an adjournment, actually we are grateful to you, Honourable Kujo, because you use less than your allocation. I have a message from His Excellency the President dated 16th November 2023, and it reads, absence from Ghana. In accordance with Article 59 of the Constitution, I write to inform you that I'll be traveling outside the country on Sunday, 19th November 2023, at the invitation of the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, His Excellency Mr. Olaf Scholz, to participate in the G20 Compact with Africa conference scheduled to be held between Monday 20th and Tuesday 21st November 2023 at the Federal Chancellery in Berlin, Germany. Therefore, I will depart Berlin to London. Thereafter, I will depart Berlin to London on a private visit from 22nd to 25th November 2023. I will return to Ghana on Saturday, 25th November 2023. During my absence, the Vice President, Alhaji Dr. Mahmoudou Bawumia, shall, in accordance with Article 68 of the Constitution, act in my stead. Yours sincerely, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Honourable members, with this, I proceed to adjourn the sitting. Honourable Mama Yarga, I did send a message to you to get in touch with your leaders and let me get the feedback. I never got any feedback.
Mr. Speaker, rightly so, the Honourable Mama Yarga contacted me and showed me a petition that he intended to bring to the attention of the House. Mr. Speaker, I strongly support that petition be presented to the House, but I'm yet to engage the Honourable Majority Leader on the matter, and maybe I will have an engagement with him from now. So he can. But I think it's a straightforward matter, and I don't think it's something that he will oppose. It's just a petition, but per our rules, it must come through a member of Parliament so that can be made available to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I got a copy of the petition, and it's coming under Order 78C. Order 78C reads, unless any order otherwise provides, notice shall be given of any motion which is proposed to make except the following. C, a motion that a petition be read, printed, or referred to a select or standing committee. This is the one that the honorable member is coming under, which is depending on which of them, whether he's going to just read it or whatever, or we have to refer it to a committee, and if leaders agree, we'll proceed to do so. Majority Leader, we are waiting on you. We have seen him.
Mr. Speaker, with respect.
He's reading something. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, we would want to engage Honorable Ayariga further on his petition so that if you so desire, tomorrow we may make progress on his petition after we're done with the debate. So, Mr. Speaker, as you have pronounced an adjournment of today's proceedings, we suggest, let me finish, then you can rise. Mr. Speaker, you've already adjourned the House, and you said you directed that leadership be engaged on this matter. Ato has spoken. We are saying that Dr. Kaisel Ato Forson has spoken. The two of them are supposed to engage. It is my instructions from the majority leader that the issues to be engaged on have not been engaged on yet. Therefore, we place the matter on ice and deal with it. It's a petition from Ghanaians, and we have no hesitation in supporting it. But let us engage as directed by Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think your directive that I engage the two leaders is in relation to the content of the petition. It is about whether or not you should just allot some 3 minutes to enable me present the petition. Mr. Speaker, I will not even read the petition. In essence, I would rather move that you refer the petition to a committee, first one to Order 78. And, Mr. Speaker, if they had allowed it by now, I would have finished and we can adjourn.
Honorable members, for good reason, will prefer to adjourn the House, and then later on this petition will be presented. For good reason. The Honorable Mama Ayariga could contact me, or leadership could contact me. I will tell them the reason. With this, I proceed to adjourn a sitting till tomorrow. The House is accordingly adjourned till tomorrow.